Welcome to the Deal by Me podcast, where we ask guests to tell us your story. Hello there, this is Dr. James W. Smith, your host. We seek to transform lives by encouraging and inspiring. So when you listen to any of the Deal by Me podcasts, please support this podcast with a donation or a monthly recurring amount for as little as $3. To supporters of this podcast, we say thank you. Check out my encouraging, inspiring, and transforming books that can be found on Amazon. I'm available for speaking engagements, so please contact me by Facebook and or LinkedIn. I have with me Diane Gansauer, who left a successful career of 20 years for something very different. She shifted careers in her late 50s. She turned to a new way of serving people, and she says that it made all the difference in her happiness and fulfillment with life. I'm thrilled to have uh, Diane come and share with listeners of this podcast. Diane, would you share with us a little about yourself, a very little, and where you are located?
Well, to start with that, I am located in Evergreen, Colorado, which is in the foothills immediately west of Denver. And I start with that, Dr. Smith, because that links me to the mountains, and half of my story is linked to the mountains.
Okay.
So, as you said, I had a career for many years in the field of wildlife and land conservation for more than 20 years. I was, by resume standards, I was very successful at that. It also, as I rose in that career over the years, frankly, it became more stressful and political with a small p. Not party politics, but more like office and state politics.
Hmm.
And it's less suited to me, more technical.
Okay.
I didn't feel like I was really at home there anymore.
Okay.
It took a nudge in life to move me out of that because I'd been there so long.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that. Uh,
Okay.
One of the things I would love to know about you, number one, uh, will we be talking a little bit about your published book, The Waypoints from 400 Farewells and 3,000 Miles?
Yes,
Okay.
that's so
Okay.
much a part of my transformation.
Okay, I just want to make certain so that
Nice
I
to meet you.
can give you the opportunity to share, how listeners can get that. But before we get there, I want to ask you this. I noticed in your profile you made interesting statement. So I want to say, why do you say shifting careers in your late 50s made a difference in your happiness? There's got to be something that occurred. So could you talk about that a little bit for us?
Well, I think what was becoming unhappy for me was that I was in a position that was pretty high profile
Hmm.
and required some political maneuvering that I didn't enjoy, nor was I good at.
Oh, okay.
And it was also very data driven and technical. And I am more of a people person.
I see.
That
Okay.
that I think is what didn't fit anymore. And what I learned was a chapter in my life. It's okay to close that, move on to something else.
Hmm. I like that. I like that. I also gathered that there is something about you that have a heart for people. Actually being a minister and a pastor uh, 32 years before retiring, and also now as an interim pastor in my home church, I sense that you have this, uh, I guess, empathy for grieving individuals. Uh,
Yes.
so what is it about the grieving people that seem to touch your heart? Is it, you personally and something
Hmm.
about your spiritual life, or is it something else that you might want to share with us?
Oh, there were so many reasons why I made the big shift in career that you're referring to. So your listeners know what that was, is I moved out of an administrative position in state government
Hmm.
into, I'm going to say, ministry with a small m, as
Okay.
in taking care of people who were grieving.
Okay.
Specifically, I founded a program at several funeral homes in the Metro Denver area to provide ceremonies, what are often called celebrations of life today. Many would still say memorial services or funerals. That's all part of what I did, to honor the lives of people who had passed away, specifically for people who didn't have a pastor to call on.
Hmm.
But there was a spiritual sense in them that they wanted to honor this life of someone they loved. So we were called celebrants. I say we because there's a small team of us now. Center this honoring of a life around that person's life story. And that
Okay.
appealed to me because it was helpful to people to acknowledge someone whom they loved.
Hmm.
And that was a very satisfying path for me to walk with them, if you will, during that tender time.
Oh, that's very, very insightful and very, I guess, touching to me. I love the story of people who seem to have empathy for others. We live in a world where it seems like nobody cares about anybody else, and it's just kind of hard to fathom people living like that. But so when I'm talking to you, it's really meaningful to me. So I want you to feel that and understand it from me. So
I'm glad.
I like to know a little bit about you from the standpoint of why you did certain things, and I noticed that you did some hiking, walking, and all of this kind of stuff. So could you talk a little more about your walking and your hiking experiences? You know,
Yes,
would
happy
you
to.
would you do that
And
for
I'm certain you can relate to this on a personal level. And I don't know anything about whether you like to go for walks or not,
me?
but the work with people on a very personal level is intense,
Hmm.
and you need to take care of yourself.
Hmm.
So I started, while working full time in providing funerals and memorial services for families. I started walking more as a way of relaxing and kind of taking a deep breath and resetting, frankly, so that I could serve people well. If I was too tired or worn out, I wouldn't be able to.
Mm.
As a young person, let's say high school age, I lived in California and used to go hiking in the Sierra Mountains now and then with my brothers. Hadn't hiked in years. I started hiking more as I was nearing retirement. So I was still working full time, but I started hiking more, cobbling together vacation time and any time that I could, holidays or whatever, mostly in the summer. And this might come as a surprise to your listeners, but I hiked extremely long trails starting in Colorado,
Mm.
and then committed myself to hiking from Mexico to Canada along the Continental Divide. At
Wow.
first, it was maybe 100 miles, building up from that in the summers because I was working. But
Mm.
as I neared retirement, I was in a fortunate position where I could kind of go into retirement gradually rather than all at once. So I went from full time to part time to being an independent contractor. And as my work hours diminished, my hiking extended. And that's how I was able to accomplish that hike, which is more than 3,000 miles, not all at once, but over 7 summers is how
Mm.
I walked from Mexico to Canada. and
Wow.
and have fun with this subject, but I think they overlapped. This
Ah.
working with people and time deep in God's creation,
Hmm.
I started thinking about those lives I had learned about
Mm.
from a deeper perspective.
Well, I guess what you're saying will probably overlap with what I'm about to ask you because one of the questions I want to ask you was what was it like meeting people along the way? And I think you perhaps kind of shared that in terms of how you felt, what the journey was like. But is there anything else you want to say about that?
Well, really, I could use your word journey to reflect on
Mm.
either side of these experiences.
Okay.
Of course, with the working on funerals and memorial services, I was meeting people I had never met before. I
Mm.
worked at a funeral home. You walk with whomever, excuse me. Well, it's funny, I would say you walk with. In a way, you
Mm.
do. You accompany whoever comes in the door.
Mm.
And I was in profound amazement at some of these lives. They weren't people you would know. I mean, these were people that were just everyday people.
Mm.
Some of them had more remarkable lives than others, let's say, but I was impacted by those lives. I could learn from these people. And
Mm.
actually, it was my job as well as my satisfying, soul satisfying experience to learn about these people because how else would I honor them well?
Mm.
I needed to get to know this life.
I
At the
love
same
that.
time, I was also meeting people on the trail. There were times
Mm.
when I was hiking by myself and didn't run into people.
Mm.
But when you hike in the mountains in the summer, you're
Mm-hmm.
very likely to run into
I,
people. That's the best time to be up there.
yeah.
So
I-
I met people in both experiences.
okay. I hear that. That's very, very powerful. Let me ask you this because I'm uh, curious at the title, but I noticed that you published a book, and I think in your profile you said earlier this year, so
Yes.
I'm assuming it was, and the title is The Waypoints from 400 Farewells and 3,000 Miles. Um, could you uh, share a little bit about what it was that inspired you to write the book.
Of
A little
course.
bit, a little bit about the title, how you decided to come up with that title. Uh, these are some things that I know, sometimes listeners are just interested in a little small things. May not be
Certain.
important to us, but for them, well, what does waypoint
How did
mean?
this happen?
Yeah, how did this happen? Yeah. So could you talk about it a little bit?
Yes, happy to. Well, what started to happen, and I did not see this coming,
Hmm.
is that as I started this very long hike, which starts, most hikers hike the Continental Divide, so it goes through the Rocky Mountains, but it starts actually in the desert at the southern end of New Mexico, and you are not near a mountain particularly. But so as I started this intense physical experience, it was challenging. I found that I was reflecting more deeply on these lives that I had honored in ceremonies.
Hmm.
I didn't particularly see that coming. But the second thing that I also observed that I didn't know was coming is that the things that I was learning from these lives, let's say that someone had showed great courage or persistence,
Mm.
I was also learning in nature from, I'll say, learning from the trail or learning from the nature itself, because, for example, with those two characteristics, courage and persistence, for
Mm.
sure, I had to have courage and I had to persist. It's not comfortable to walk 3,000 miles
Mm.
with a backpack.
Mm.
So I began to see that some of the lessons were overlapping, and that's what inspired the book. And
Wow.
it's called what it is, the waypoints. That's a navigational term. That's
Hmm.
a waypoint on a trail is something that, say, you could see. It's a pile of rocks, or it's a sign, or it's the
Hmm.
junction of two trails. It's a marker that says, oh, on the map, this is where I am. And so now I know where to go next. It's a
Oh, okay.
navigational term. But I was using it for, and I know you and your listeners will relate to this, for interior navigation. Where does
Okay.
my heart need to go? Where
Mm,
does my soul need to grow and go?
mm.
So, and the subtitle of 400 Farewells and 3,000 Miles, well, by the time I finished the 3,000 plus mile trail, I had also completed back in Metro Denver, back at home, more than 400 memorial services.
Oh, wow.
So that's
Wow.
what the numbers refer to and what
Okay. Awesome.
waypoints refer to.
That's awesome. That's
That, I'm
awesome.
glad I could make that
Yeah.
clear for
Oh,
you.
yeah. You made it very clear. So, what do you hope people will take from your book and this interview? Is
Well, God is with you.
okay.
I mean, first of all, that shift from a career of more than 20 years, and we all might experience shifts of different kinds, but
Hmm.
that was not easy.
Okay.
And I said a little prayer about that. I said, if I'm supposed to give up this career, please make it obvious. And honestly, you got to be careful what you ask or pray for because it became painfully obvious I needed to go. I
Okay.
needed to close that chapter and go to something new. So that's one thing. But the other thing that I really hope your listeners will take to heart, and they don't have to do something almost as crazy and extreme as walking from Mexico to Canada. Maybe they go in their backyard or they take some kids or grandkids and go to a local park. Is God's creation is another way God communicates with us.
Hmm.
That and the lives of people around us whom we love or whom maybe we don't know very well, but we admire. There's navigation
Hmm.
advice for
Okay.
us
Oh,
all around us.
oh.
That's I guess what I hope most to say is that nature in its persistence, in its strength. I'm not going to say nature is courageous. It brought out courage in me,
Hmm.
but there's a shaping and a carving and a timelessness of nature that
Hmm.
runs through us too.
Mm.
Really.
I hear that. I hear that. Listeners, don't go to place because I've got just a couple more questions that I want to ask Diane. But first, I want to give Diane the opportunity to share with you how you can learn a little bit more about her and how you can get her book, The
Okay.
Waypoints from 400 Farewells and 3,000 Miles. So, would you share that, Diane, with
Yep. May
listeners?
I hold the book up? Will that show?
Sure, sure.
Okay, so they can kind of see what the picture is on the front. That pile of rocks, that humble little pile of rocks, is called a cairn, and that's an
Hmm.
example of a waypoint on a trail.
Oh, okay.
So the waypoints from 400 farewells and 3,000 miles, it's online,
Hmm.
Amazon, Barnes and Noble, just about any other online retailer you can think of, and you can get it in paperback
Hmm.
or as an ebook like a Kindle. I've
Okay.
tried to keep the price down, even as prices for everything are rising.
Hmm.
Or you can go to your local bookstore and ask them to order it. If
I
they've
got,
got the name of the book and my name, which I assume will show up as somewhere on your
okay.
intro of the podcast,
I,
they can order that book. And you could also look for my name on Substack. If people get on Substack, that's like an online newsletter.
right.
And
Okay.
occasionally I put
Okay.
news stories there.
Right.
Thank
Okay.
you for that.
Well, thank you. No problem whatsoever. Glad to know that. Uh, Let me kind of close with this statement and question from you. Uh, I think I shared with you that I pastored for about 30, well, not about, but I pastored for 32 years before retiring. And now I'm working as an interim pastor at my home church. And before I retired, I wanted to do something that I thought would continue my ministry, and that was to try to start a podcast, and I did. Uh, and of course, I was doing it up until maybe 5 or 6 months ago when I started doing it primarily uh, with a company out of California. But I wanted to do something I thought would be encouraging, inspiring, and transforming. So I'm listening to you today, and I gather from your conversation and from your profile that sometimes we do get kind of tired in situations. We're a little stuck in situations.
Hmm.
We don't uh, particularly want to continue to do it. So if there are persons who are listening to this podcast who are in that kind of situation, what is it that you would say to them that would be encouraging, inspiring, and hopefully transforming? Do you have a word for them?
I think you start with listening to that and not ignoring that.
Okay.
When I was looking for some more fulfilling avenue while I was in a job I was no longer happy with,
Mm-hmm.
I found creative outlets, ministering, taking care of people outside of my full time job while I still had that job.
Mm.
So I tried to be reasonable when I made the switch, and I conferred with my husband because we're partners in life, and I wanted to be sure I wasn't going to do something that was going to be bad for my family and
Mm-hmm.
household. And it was quite the opposite. They knew I was unhappy. They wanted me to be happy. Maybe I
Mm-hmm.
was bringing too much of my stress home. I probably was. So I would just say, listen to yourself first.
Okay.
That tug on your heart's probably for real, and
Mm-hmm.
tend to that, and know that even though we can't control everything that happens to us in life, of course not, we can control our response.
Mm-hmm.
And in that sense, we shape our story until God closes it.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that. Diane, it has been a pleasure talking to you today, and I'm grateful that you chose to come on the Deal by Me podcast.
Thank
And
you. It's just been I've enjoyed this conversation very much.
thank you so very much. And there you have it, Diane Gansauer sharing
Gansauer.
Gansauer sharing with us today. And until next time, peace and blessings be with each of you.